I think I've done enough of these videos down here that the dogs are figuring out they can hang out with me on the platform or this ramp thing, but I'm not going to play. So finally I have a safe spot to go from the dogs and playing. Normally, if it's up close to the house, I'm usually sitting in front of the porch or on the porch. Gidget will bring me the entire collection of Chuck-It balls to make sure I've weighed all my options and I know for sure that I don't want to play. And if you hear chomping, they've been chasing gnats, and currently there's a horsefly, I think, that they've all kind of locked in on. Not enough to get up, but enough that they're keeping an eye on it whenever it comes around. Yeah. So today is kind of a, I don't know what. It's Father's Day. We had some food over at my aunt's house, and then I took the girls over to my other aunt's house next door. And okay, so the thing earlier was at the youngest aunt's house, and she and her daughter went over to the middle aunt's house, which the middle aunt is the one that lives next door to us. And the youngest daughter hadn't got to meet the puppy yet, so now she has met the puppy. I took Ziva and Gidget over there because it's good for all of them, just the socialization and all that fun stuff. Tad is still a work in progress. I think tomorrow I'll probably have the middle aunt bring her puppy and her daughter's puppy that she's watching this weekend. They'll probably come over to our yard, because if we go over to their yard, then just the girls get to go. But this morning, when I was walking the dogs in the side lot, they were all gung-ho about wanting to go over there and check it out. Taz has been there before, but not while there's new puppies, so yeah. It's a little bit of a confusion in the day. Nothing real spectacularly awful, just kind of one of those things showing that some family members aren't doing as well as they might otherwise have been letting on. So yeah, but I had to have my brother drop me off at the house and pick up another car and go back over to the younger aunt's house a little bit ago with some stuff. And oh yeah, that was the thing. Like, I kept seeing 519. That's come up a few times, even before today. Usually anything with a 19 means something too. Of course, 19, I think, is how many circles there are in the flower of life pattern, and it's a bunch of other things. But it's one of those numbers that has been following me. It's also the date Tyler died, so another connection there, and then a couple other things. But the 19 is kind of, it's usually there. And of course, on the other end of that, that was, I've been seeing numbers, like now it doesn't matter what order I see them. If I see the same 3 digits in other orders, then I still kind of, it's like my brain can shift them and automatically see, like Tyler's birthday. I just saw that on the clock, 429. So I might see 249 or 942 or something like that. And it's like I can just kind of, for a while it was just like the forward and backwards, and now it's kind of shifting. So if they're in other orders, I can catch them too. But then going back to the 19, The thing that's kind of weird about that is it's also another one of my great grandpa's numbers is 91. So it's that in reverse. Yeah, so see a lot of that one. Of course, today was 91 degrees. But when I was going from our house over to my aunt's again, and there's 519 again, I saw it on, like, the clock said, I think it was 4:51, and then it was 91 degrees, and of course the temperature gauge is right next to the clock, so they kind of run together. And then I saw it on the odometer, and then I saw it on a license plate. And where was the other place? There was another one right there with, so it's like, that must mean something. So I looked it up a little bit ago, and it says, to follow your intuition and continue to go with the flow of things that are taking place in your life. It talks about releasing the past and making room for new things in the future, but the big thing is to go with the flow of the changes that are occurring. So yeah. Ouch. So yeah. And like, one of the things that happened was there's kind of a little, I mentioned my dad being in the hospital last week, and then there's like some other stuff that was kind of going on today that he just wasn't feeling good. And my mom and I, when we were coming back from my aunt's house the last time, well, she was over there. I left her there when I came back here. But when we were coming back, I mentioned that I had this sense earlier in the year that this might be his last. And my mom said that she has had some times where she has thought, with as much as there is going on, that she would be surprised if he was still here next year too. It's like, ugh, that's heavy, you know. And of course I did that video where I kind of finally talked about it when I was actively avoiding that whole topic for a long time, because I mean, I don't want to discuss it and have that manifested or something. But today it kind of gave me the sense that maybe there's just a need to talk about the heavier things that are going on, like with the family. You know, because at least one of my mom's sisters has kind of commented in that direction too. It's like, you know, and then of course my mom was talking about how my grandma was all wound up because since my grandpa's leukemia is back, she has to, or she's supposed to go with them to the appointments, and this time it's going to be like Tuesday and Wednesday, at least this week. I don't know if that's an every week thing or if it's just the starting back thing. He's been going pretty consistently on Tuesdays, but this time around they added another day, so I'm not sure all those details. But my mom was talking about how my grandma doesn't want to go to either of them, but at the same time she's not going to be happy if she doesn't go and she's not there for him, and he's not going to be happy if she doesn't go and isn't there for him. It's like I feel like a big part of the stuff that's going on with the aggravation on, you know, what all's happening over there too, you know, there's a certain point at which part of the resentment, I feel like, probably comes from the fact that the relationships in my family, by and large, are more codependency um, connections than anything. I told my mom, it's like, she said, well, she's not going to be happy when he's not around, to clean up after her or to go to the appointments with and all that stuff. And my grandma said, I know, but it's like, I don't know where in their timeline, like from college to, or not college, from high school to getting married they were. But I know, like, my mom, she got married in November and graduated midterm in December. And, that was, then she had my brother at 20, and by the time she was 22, she had both of us. And it's like, a lot of it, the connections and everything seem more like there's a degree of obligation and fearing not having someone, or getting too old, and like that was part of my thing that pushed me to rush into a toxic marriage, which, granted, I didn't realize it was going to be as toxic as it turned out to be, but it was still toxic. And a lot of that was because, I think I met him at 28, and we got married after I turned 29, which was the same year, so it was very rushed. But because I was at that age where I was feeling like a burden from the standpoint of back home with my parents again. And hadn't been married, and like all the stuff that like my family had done. It was high school, marriage, family, work, and it was like a very set way of things happening. So then for me, since it kept not happening, I got to a point where I got really in my head about it and was feeling bad because I felt like I was going to be a burden or whatever. It's like, pretty confident if I never did anything but stay in my parents' house, my mom would be thrilled to death because I could just take care of her and, whatever else is going on. It's like, that's not cool either. Because at this point, the reason I'm where I am now is mainly because I have been more concerned about what other people want for me in my lifetime or expect of me. And it hasn't been a matter of learning more about what I want from life and pursuing those things. It was doing stuff out of obligation, and I feel like there was a certain amount of that existed in the family, before I ever came around. Of course, that codependency runs in families, but that's one of those things. It's like, if you don't learn how to have a healthy connection, and if you've only ever seen less than ideal connections, then you don't learn any different. And I think one of the things that I kind of thought a few years ago, just on that end, when I was, when I was getting my bachelor's degree in psychology, Um, like, I thought of it with like alcoholism, and like, okay, if you only ever see family members drinking to deal with their problems rather than to learn healthy ways to cope with those problems, um, unless you deal with that and find a better way yourself, you're going to perpetuate the problems just because that's what you've always seen. And kind of like, okay, families where child abuse is a thing. If you were abused by your family, even if you say that you're not going to perpetuate that cycle, if you don't do the work to heal, you could inadvertently just happen into those tendencies. And then, okay, so maybe your parents hit you, so maybe you don't hit your kids, but when you still get stressed, then maybe you're saying things that aren't ideal, and end up being just as traumatizing on that end. Neighbors are out again. Yeah. Then, my family, one of the big things is stress eating. And I think there's a lot. Yeah, that seems like a big, big issue far beyond my family. And I think part of it is like when I was getting ready to start my healing process. Thank you. Hey, Gidgy, thank you. When I was getting ready to start my healing process, I found that I ended up doing a lot more of like the stress eating and consuming the empty calories in other ways and whatnot. And I think a part of that is no, please don't, thank you. Zibby. So I found in the last video, if I set my phone on my knee, I tend to muffle the microphone, so should not do that. Taz. Yeah, but I think like as as you go into the healing process and you're working on raising your own frequency levels, it tends to be a lot easier to slip back into those habits, because you feel, okay, so a big thing is not feeling safe or secure in your own body. Something that I've had to spend some time with. And it's because, like the lower 3 chakras, that's your root, sacral, and solar plexus. That's where the sense of safety and security come from. And also, I think the solar plexus is how, I think Radley Valentine talked about it as, you kind of send like feelers, if you will, to other people that you interact with to see if there are issues where they're not feeling safe. And that comes from the solar plexus, I believe it was. And, so if you're sending out these energetic cords and you connect with somebody else that's not feeling safe in who they are, and you're already not feeling safe in who you are either, that's not ideal. And I think that goes back to the whole why boundary setting has been so important for me, because in the grand scheme of things, we are all connected, and we all have what is it they say, the entire ocean in a drop. So it's like you have you're collectively all together we make up trying to figure out how to say it. It's gonna probably piss people off however I say it though. Collectively, if we each were to focus on our own part of what we're here to do, it makes, because we can't heal everybody. We can only heal what we came here to work on and to learn and to heal. So if we each focus on our individual piece of what we're supposed to be working on, then it does heal that thing for the collective and make it so so other people can focus on the specific things they're here to heal. And collectively, we are all connected, and we are all a part of the divine. Obviously not all of it, because otherwise we wouldn't need all these other people here too, but we all, it's like that. I really had no idea where this was going to go today. And I stared at my camera for a while before I started, because it's like, how do I even start this? I don't know where it's going. I don't know what I'm talking about at all. So to be here, I'm not even sure how to approach it. Yeah, I think it's going to sound messy either way. But if we do the work to shift what we can, our little piece of the puzzle, to be more of who we are, then it opens it up so that others can as well. And okay, I mentioned before that I had that one guy one time who was basically trying to make me second guess myself and if I was being too protective of my boundaries. And he was talking about he likes to help people merge together. It's like, that's the last thing we need, because we naturally do that anyway, because we are all an aspect of the divine. And if we are reaching out to help others in whatever way we can and losing ourselves in that, nothing gets done, because we've lost what's ours to deal with. But if we protect our boundaries and know where we end and another person begins, then we can do the work to heal whatever it is we came here to learn in this lifetime and to heal. And that impacts the collective as a whole. But if we're trying to merge back in, and that's way too easy to lose yourself and to get more distracted away from what you're here to do. And that's not helpful, because if you lose yourself, then nothing gets resolved, because you're just taking on other people's shit. and that's less than ideal. My uncle is watching something that has the Austin Powers music playing. It's probably a little Facebook reel or something. Yeah, but that was kind of weird. I started repeating over and over. Yeah. Felt like last night was a good day to fix the hair because it needed it, and I always like it when it's the jewel tones. We had a conversation on the way over to my aunt's. My dad was in the back seat, my mom was in the passenger seat, and I didn't like the song that was playing on the 80s station, so I changed it, and I stopped on, like, it was the 10 spot or something. I don't know. At first, I caught like the very tail end of one song that I wanted to hear. It's like, I missed it. Because, yeah, it was disappointing. But I left it long enough. And then LMFAO's Sexy and I Know It came on. And that was a whole ordeal back when it came out. My sister-in-law showed me the music video. And it was kind of this hilarious thing. And then it was funny to introduce the rest of the family to it because everybody's like, oh. My aunt next door specifically, because she had the biggest reaction. There was just a whole lot of my grandparents didn't know what to think. Even more so the fact that she and I were showing them the video. Granted, it was Jen's idea, but still. I just thought, I went along with it and thought it was hilarious. Yeah, but that was a big thing. So anyway, I was dancing in the car, and my dad said something, and then he was talking about, he went over to one of his younger brothers. Oh, they're all younger. He's the oldest. The second to youngest brother's house yesterday, and was visiting with him and his wife. And he said, I guess you and Vicky talk quite a bit. It's like, I wouldn't say quite a bit. I said when I was on Facebook all the time, she would frequently comment on my posts. Hi. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you. Yeah, she would frequently comment on my posts, and she liked what I would post on there. And she said many times that she thinks I probably think a lot like she does on some of the stuff with the spirituality side of things. So yeah, it's like we have we get along, but it's like I wouldn't say that we're especially close. We don't talk a lot, but we do talk periodically, and I enjoy talking with her, like when we're around each other. I think the last time I saw her in person was at my uncle and my cousin share a birthday, and so a bunch of us went out for their birthdays. That one I didn't talk to her too much because they got there a little bit later, so she was further away. But normally I would talk to her. Before then, it was my Uncle Dave's funeral. Oh, and on my uncle and cousin's birthday, that was the day that our friend Mike died. So yeah, that was a whole thing too. But yeah, like after Dave's funeral, we all went to a church that put on a little meal for the family, so I spent some time hanging out with her there. Dude, that's not the place. trying to drag its butt on the ramp and about slid off. Um, but yeah, like, we have a lot in common, but I don't remember what it was my dad said exactly. But I was like car dancing and he and my mom both said something, or one of them said something, the other agreed with it, and I said, yeah, that's my Leo Venus. And they're like, what? I said, when I was born, the sign that the planet Venus was in was Leo, and apparently that has something to do with why I am the way I am. This stuff. And I talked about how the pattern app that I frequently talk about, it commonly mentions that I'm not supposed to blend in. I'm supposed to stand out and be seen, and if there's something going on where I'm trying to conform, I'm going to stick out more like a sore thumb, and it ain't gonna go well for me. And Mom's like, I believe that. I see that, yep. And they both kind of agreed to it. It's like, yeah, that's the Leo Venus. Which I read one thing that talked about how your best match is somebody whose Venus sign is in your sun sign and vice versa. So it's like, okay, so with that in mind, my perfect match is a Leo with a Cancer Venus. We'll see. Yeah, like, it was kind of funny. Like, my ex was a Leo, and after that whole thing went down, she's like, no, not doing that again. And it's like, I can't rule out the entire sign for one specific person, because I didn't know anything else about his chart at that point in time. I still don't, and shy of asking his mom for the information, which I won't do. I'm just not going to get it and not going to know, so forget it. But yeah, I had something pop into my head once where I felt like I could almost see his Venus sign being an Aquarius. It's like, I don't even know why. That's just the thought that came to my mind. It's like, well, I'm definitely not an Aquarius, so yeah. Yeah, I don't know. They're just random thoughts. Anyway, I told my family a little bit ago when I went over to my aunt's house that I discovered that this platform is my safe spot from having to play. Because if I sit on the porch swing, she's going to keep bringing me all her toys. And it's like, oh, this ball isn't good enough. How about this one? And she will continue to do this until they're like, 10 to 20 sitting on the porch swing next to me. Because my dad also sits on the porch swing a lot. And whereas I have taught her to take a break, she knows if she pushes some of us, or if she pushes at just the right time and we're not paying attention, then we'll start throwing it again without even being mindful of that fact. My dad's especially bad about doing that. So he's not going to sit out here on this platform. So this is my spot where if I'm sitting here, there's a chance I'm going to do a video. She knows, like, she'll lay down and look at me like, oh, you're doing this again? Great. But, well, there are currently four balls that I see. And she'll bring them and try to push me too. As long as I ignore them down here, it's my safe spot. Um, and of course, she's got the hard-headedness like the blue heeler and the obsessive focus like the Australian Shepherd. Well, and blue heeler. She's just super fixated when she's in a mood. I think I caught 519. I don't know if I caught 1519. I caught 2519, and I just caught 3519. So I'm catching all the 519s again. So that's following the intuition and going with the flow. Huh, that's interesting. I feel like that's kind of what the nature of these videos ends up being. Like, I don't necessarily know where I'm going to start, or maybe I'll start with an idea and maybe I'll focus on that idea, or maybe I won't even, I don't know. Usually I talk about it to some degree if I have something in mind. But yeah, going with the flow. That's how I end up with these really long videos. Because I never know what I'm going to do until it's like, well, interesting. Didn't see that coming. Yeah. I feel like since I have been doing these videos as much as I have, like, I do feel some of the burdens from the past getting released from my system. And I do feel a lot lighter on overall, and happier. And I think the cards I pulled last night, it was from the Angels and Auras deck. One was Sandalphon and the color turquoise, and it talked about it being a color of ascension, and it's related to healing and forgiveness. And then Jophiel and pink, and of course that's a color of positivity and joyfulness. There were 6 cards altogether, and those were the first 2, and I thought it was funny because I was actually wearing mostly those 2 colors yesterday when I pulled those, but then like some of the other cards, there was See the Humor, I forget what the second one was called, but it talked about good job, you're doing great at turning lemons into lemonade. See the Humor was do well at finding the humor in some of the things that I might not have been able to before, which is absolutely true. Like, I think I've mentioned before that in basic training I had somebody call me Debbie Downer, and it's like, what? I'm not that bad. And it's like, oh, I kind of am. Now I'm not. Of course, now I'm seeing where all that negativity has come from when I'm like hanging out with my family and they're like consistently all negative. It's like, man. And that's something me and my brother have always been pretty good at, especially my brother. He does more so. He's kind of one of the family comedians. Yeah, but like if things go a certain way, we can usually find something funny in it. Even when I was more chronically negative, I could still do that to an extent. But it's like now I'm getting even more so where it's something that I can do easier. So that's kind of cool. And I was thinking the other day, it's like, they talk about how life gives you, okay, like the people you need. Like, okay, my brother and his wife have their daughter, my niece, Gracie. And one of my favorite things about this kid is, okay, so a lot of the trauma that I ended up with was because of the sense of shame and guilt that I felt got like just poured on me when I was younger. And I absolutely love it when I see somebody in the family that's trying to take that approach with her. And of course, she's autistic, so she doesn't really connect with a lot of that anyway. And she's just like, that's not gonna work. And it doesn't. So, that shame and guilt stuff, it's like, find a new way, find something else that works, because that ain't gonna work for that one. It's like, thank God. And my brother's got a lot of anxiety. We were kind of talking about that the other day when I was at their house. It's like, think about just how much that guilt and shame was the thing, and that sense of disappointment. And of course, he's a Capricorn, so it's like that much intensified on that end. So he gets lots of anxiety on, ouch. I think I might have given myself a splinter. That would be sad. Allow me to sit here and pick my foot. Nope, just looks like I might have just tore the skin loose. Lovely. Oops. The negative part about sitting on this here wooden platform. Well, it did have a splinter, but I already got it out. It's a big one. But yeah, well, since I'm not wearing shoes. If I walk the dogs in the side lot, I don't wear shoes. If I am in the backyard, I have flip-flops, but because we have a lot of rocks and dog poop. But yeah, not wearing them on the platform. I like being without my shoes as much as possible. Oh, and we have bowl number 5 with us. Hi. Yeah, but going back to like Gracie, because the first time I came, I moved back home in December 2017. The second to last time I left my ex, before the final permanent one. So she would have been a year and a half, and that was a big part of, I think I do have a splinter in there. I think that was a big part of why, that was why my mom didn't want me bringing Taz and Gidget with me, was because she hadn't met them, and she was watching Gracie all the time. And Ziva she knew, and she was fine with Ziva, but she wasn't okay with the other two because she didn't know them. Never mind that, I will always go out of my way to make sure my dogs are every bit as protected from the people that we might encounter as the people are from the dogs, and make sure they're not just doing dumb shit. I don't want... I prefer Taz not meeting new to him people, if I'm not around. He met a family friend once, and both my parents and the guy that he met, granted, I was still with my ex. We were not, I think he came up to Indy to visit, but more so his family had something going on and we were going out with them. And Taz met this guy when I wasn't there, and of course Taz is a whole different dog now than he was back then, but if he doesn't have a toy in his mouth or nearby to grab, then he chomps his teeth a lot, so it sounds scary. It does. But having the awareness that, and he will get nippy if, he doesn't have something nearby to grab. they weren't able to be cognizant of that at that time. So it's like, this is a hot mess. Anyway, they were afraid that Taz just was trying to bite him or whatever. It's like, if Taz wanted to bite him, he would have bit him, but he did not. Did not go like you said it did. I have no doubt in my mind that it was not exactly what y'all said. But yeah, because that guy ended up coming over another time when I was home, and then he was fine, and then he was never a problem around that guy again. But it's just the one time that I wasn't here, and I would have said, get it, chasing gnats. I would have said, if I knew he was going over there, put him up before the guy gets there, because I don't want him meeting people without me around. Yeah. But anyway, when I came back the last time, we tried to keep Taz and Gracie separate. And they did not like that at all. Neither one of them. So, like, Taz would be in his box, and she'd be trying to let him out and wanting to visit, and once we started allowing them to be together, he adored her. Yeah, they see less eye to eye nowadays, but they used to really connect. But it was funny because it was something we were trying to avoid letting them do, just because we weren't sure how it was going to go. And then they loved each other. Then she got to a certain point where she liked to put him in his crate or lock him in my room just because she could. It's like, you can't just do that, especially, that was the big thing. It's like, it's one thing if there's something else going on, but don't just lock him up just because. I mean, sometimes it has to happen, but he doesn't need to spend all his time in there just because she's here and doesn't want to be around him. Because most of the time, if I'm here and she's here, which is most of the time that she is here, because she's not around as much as she used to be, they go wherever I go anyway. So then if she wants to go in my office and hang out with us, they're already in there. She's tried to throw them out that way, and it's like, no, this is their spot. You can't do that. Or if I want to go in, or if I'm in my room for some reason and I might have the door open, and then she'll decide to try to kick them out. It's like, nope. This is their room. You can't just throw them out because you want to hang out on my bed. The other part of that is she likes to destroy my bed, so it's also ideal not to have her in there all that time. But another one of those things with her, when I came back the last time, there were a lot of things that I had to choose how I was going to, what example I was going to set for her. And the big one, or one of the big ones starting out, was she always had her iPad around and like her Spotify playlist. She's got some dancing playlists, and she used to play those all the time. And when she's 2 or 3 and starts dancing in the kitchen and clearly wants you dancing with her, there was the time when I was just standing there looking at my phone and she's dancing, and it's like, is this really the example you want to set for this child? It's like, no. So next thing you know, we're all dancing in the kitchen. Me, her, and my mom. So and then the other thing was when she started going to preschool. And back then, of course, I was newly divorced and rocking the faux hawk. and the colorful hair and the weird clothes and all that stuff. Um, there was a day when I was kind of feeling sketchy about going to pick her up because, I wasn't feeling real fabulous about myself at the time. It was actually kind of funny. There were 2 points on the faux hawk that I went that route. The first was when I was, I think, in middle school. We went to this lady for haircuts, like somebody my mom knew from work or something like that, and she was kind of making it a big joke, and we're gonna give you a purple mohawk, right? And it's like, sure, let's do it. And it was a joke back then. Of course, I always had long hair. I was in my senior year of undergrad when I finally cut it all off the first time, and back then I think I just went chin length. So now it's kind of there again. But it was a big traumatic thing back then because I was always hiding behind my hair. So then, that was one piece because that lady said something about getting the purple mohawk. It was just kind of like, yeah, but I never would have done it back then. The other part was my ex got on this tirade for a while trying to accuse me of being gay, and it's like, he judged it a lot more harshly than I ever did, and I think he actually got pissed at me a few times because I told him to knock it off when he was being a dick about somebody being gay or using that as something to make fun of somebody about. Or one of the things that happened that was a big point of contention, his son had 2 brothers, and every time, he'd leave the house, they would give each other hugs. Well, when his friend his son had a friend over the first time, and he gave him a hug before he left, the friend thought it was weird, and then my ex was like, "Don't do that. That's weird." It's like, why is that weird? He has brothers, and that's what they did every time. So why wouldn't he do that? It's like, that's, but he kind of made it a thing. It's like, don't be a dick. Do not, but then he started accusing me of being gay. It's like, never have been. Nope. Don't have any problems with people who are. In fact, I've seen, from my time in roller derby, those have actually been some of the more loving connections that I've seen of marriages and whatnot. So I got no problems there. But he had big problems. But since he wanted to, accuse me of being gay, so once I decided to cut my hair off, it's like, you know what? I totally rock this. And I did for a while. But I was also at my peak weight, so it did not look fabulous, but, all the same. Of course, some of them is just the pictures. Like my driver's license picture, those are never good anyway, right? Hopefully, this next one will be better because that last one was especially awful. But yeah, part of the motivation on the faux hawk was because I was seeing it as a deterrent for my ex, as well as other douchey dudes. So yeah, I have no problems admitting that I've done things specifically as deterrents for certain people. Yeah, like the green hair. I like these greens and whatnot, and that whole thing came up because some guy on a dating website said if you have ever had facial piercings, tattoos, or have ever had green hair, then move along because he was looking for somebody to take to church. It's like, okay then. Yeah. My heathen nature. I embrace it fully. Yeah. So, another almost hour-long video when I didn't know what I was going to talk about. Fabulous. Just go with the flow. It works. Anyway, this splinter in my foot is kind of annoying me at this point, so I'm going to get off of here and go fix it, because it's just an itty-bitty little thing, but I'll show you. Right there. So that's annoying enough that I'm going to go get it on my foot. So, as always, I appreciate you, and until the next time, see you later.